I never thought I'd find myself in this mess. Honestly, I thought I knew my wife better than anyone else. We'd been together for nearly 10 years, building a life, a family. She was the kind of woman who seemed to have it all together: beautiful, smart, caring, the perfect wife. Or so I thought. That was until the day I found the truth. Or rather, the truth found me, crashing into my world like a freight train. It all started that morning, the day of my father's funeral. I've been holding it together all week, pale, exhausted, trying to be strong for my family. But the air was thick with grief, and I could feel it pulling me under. The funeral home was crowded with faces I hadn't seen in years, and the scent of lilies and old wood filled my nose. My stomach was in knots, my head pounding with memories and sadness. I'd been preoccupied, lost in my thoughts when she approached me. My wife, Lisa, looked upset but also strangely serene. "Are you okay?" she asked, voice soft but trembling just a little. I nodded, trying to keep my composure. "Yeah, just a lot, you know." She reached out and took my hand, squeezing it. "We're all hurting. I'm here for you," she whispered, her eyes glossy with unshed tears. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her, but something about her expression made me uneasy, like she was hiding something. Later that day, as I sat beside my mother, an odd feeling crept in. I kept catching glimpses of Lisa, talking quietly with my brother, Mark. They seemed too close, whispering and laughing in a way that felt off. I brushed it aside, telling myself I was just tired, overthinking. But then I noticed her phone sitting on a table, screen lit up, notifications blinking. I didn't mean to look, but my curiosity got the better of me. I leaned over and glanced at the screen. There was a string of messages, flirty, intimate, way too personal. The kind of messages that made my stomach turn, that made my hands clammy. My heart slammed against my chest. Right then, I saw a photo. A selfie of her in a hotel room wearing nothing but a silk robe. The caption, "Can't wait to see you tonight, miss you already." My breath hitched. For a moment I just stared. My mind spun in chaos. I wasn't imagining things. She'd been lying all along for months, and my brother, my own flesh and blood, was in on it. I felt something cold spread through me: shock, rage, betrayal. It was all tangled up inside, choking me. I wanted to scream, to punch something, to shake her until she told me it was all a mistake. But I didn't. I sat there, trembling, staring at that screen like it was a knife driven straight into my gut. And then I realized this wasn't some fleeting mistake. This was a betrayal that cut deep and refused to heal. That night I stayed silent. We drove home in a fog of grief and confusion. Every time I looked at her, Lisa, the woman I'd trusted, my stomach clenched. I kept replaying what I'd seen, feeling that gnawing sense of betrayal. I knew I couldn't keep pretending. I had to do something. I had to plan my next move. But I didn't want to do it in anger alone. I wanted revenge, a way to make her feel what I was feeling now. I needed to cover my tracks, gather evidence, and prepare for what was coming. It was time I turned the tables. Lisa thought she could get away with it, that I'd never find out. Well, I'd make sure she regretted every lie. I was drowning in betrayal, and I was done playing nice. I kept my face calm when I saw her later that night, but inside I was already plotting. My stomach was tight, palms sweaty. The betrayal was fresh, raw, and I knew that from this moment on, everything was going to change. Before I slept that night, I made a decision. I'd wait, gather everything, and then confront her, publicly, painfully. She'd regret ever crossing the line. I was going to make her feel the sting of betrayal, and I'd do it in a way she'd never see coming. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I was about to find out. And when I did, she'd wish she'd just left me in peace. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was pounding, my stomach still twisted from the night before. But I knew I couldn't afford to fall apart now. I had to focus, start gathering what I needed: evidence, proof. Anything I could use. I stared at the ceiling, feeling that dull ache of betrayal deep in my gut. Lisa was still sleeping beside me, peaceful as if nothing was wrong. I looked at her face, trying to remember the woman I'd once loved. It was hard to see past the lies now. My mind kept circling back to that message, that photo. I couldn't ignore it. I had to find out if there was more. I reached for my phone, kept it hidden in my pocket, and started searching her social media accounts. Her online presence was mostly clean, nothing suspicious there, but I knew better. People hide so much behind a screen. I decided to follow her phone activity. I installed some discreet apps last night, just enough to catch her messages, calls, location. It wasn't exactly legal, but I justified it to myself. She'd crossed a line that couldn't be forgiven. If I didn't act now, I'd lose her forever, and I needed to be sure of everything before I confronted her. Later that afternoon, I suggested we go for a walk. "Let's get out of the house," I said, voice steady. She nodded, eyes a little too bright, maybe nervous. We strolled through the park trying to act normal, but my mind was racing. I kept glancing at her, watching for signs of guilt or hesitation. She was tense, I could tell. We sat on a bench and I made small talk, but inside I was already planning my next move. I had to get more proof, something undeniable. I remembered her purse in the car. Maybe there was something there. I excused myself, saying I needed to check my messages. I slipped away, pretending to tie my shoe while I reached into her bag. My fingers closed around a small, crumpled piece of paper. I pulled it out and unfolded it carefully. It was a handwritten note, an address, a time. "Meet me here tonight, can't wait." No signature, just a location, but I knew what it meant. That was where she was sneaking off to, probably to see him. I felt my chest tighten. The proof was piling up, and I knew this was the moment I'd been waiting for. I went back to her, feigning casual interest. "You have plans tonight?" I asked. She hesitated briefly, then nodded. "Yeah, just some friend from work." "Nothing special." I nodded back, voice even. "All right, have a good time." I wanted to smash something. How could she lie so easily? That night I sat in my car a few blocks away from the address. The street was quiet, dark, and I could see her silhouette through a window. She was sitting at a table with my brother, laughing, touching his arm like they'd known each other forever. I clenched my fists so tight my nails dug into my palms. My entire body was trembling. I knew then that I had enough evidence. This was the end of the line for her lies. I'd been played, used, and betrayed by people I trusted most. I thought about confronting her right then and there, but I needed to be smart. I needed to prepare. I went home that night, blood boiling, adrenaline rushing. I had to come up with a plan, something that would make her regret everything. I was tired of being a passive victim, tired of the lies and the hiding. She thought she could do this, sleep with my brother behind my back, and I'd never find out. Well, she was wrong. I sat down at the kitchen table, took a deep breath, and started drafting my revenge. It had to be subtle, effective. I wanted her to feel exposed, vulnerable, humiliated. I thought about exposing her secretly, making her own secrets turn against her. She'd never see it coming. The trap was set. I had everything I needed, and I was ready to strike. I didn't want her crying or begging. I wanted her to see the damage she'd done. It was time she paid for her betrayal. I looked at the evidence I'd collected, a cold smile creeping across my face. She thought she was clever, she was wrong. That night, as I prepared to execute my plan, I felt a strange calm. Whatever happened next, I knew I'd finally be in control again. And she'd finally realized just how deep her lies had cut. I was done hiding. I was done waiting. The game was about to change. The next few days were a blur of planning and tension. Every moment I wasn't pretending to be normal. I was mapping out how I'd make her regret every lie, every second she thought she could get away with it. I kept a close eye on her, watching her every move, noticing the little signs she didn't think I saw, that quick glance at her phone, the way she brushed her hair back when she thought I wasn't looking. It all fed into my plan. I spent hours online, digging through her social media profiles, trying to find any more evidence I could use. I wanted her to see how thoroughly I was watching her, how much I knew. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about making her understand she couldn't keep lying. I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. One evening she tried to act innocent. "Are you okay? You've been distant lately," Lisa asked, voice soft but cautious, as if she knew I was onto her. I looked her straight in the eyes. "I'm fine, just tired," I replied, voice flat. Inside I was boiling. I'd seen enough. The pieces were falling into place. That night I hid a small camera in the corner of the bedroom, pointed at her side of the bed. Nothing overt, just enough to catch her in her lies or catch her with her phone. I wanted real proof, not just assumptions. I also planted a tiny GPS tracker on her car so I could follow her if she left for her meeting. I wasn't taking any chances. The following day, she left early, her purse heavy with hidden secrets. I followed her discreetly, keeping a safe distance. The street she drove to was quiet, suburban. She pulled into a small, nondescript apartment complex. I parked down the block, watching from my car, feeling the familiar knot tighten in my stomach. Inside that place, she was probably with him, doing what I never thought possible. I recorded everything on my phone, watching her go in and out, exchanging texts with someone, probably Mark. I felt sick, but I kept my face neutral. I knew I had to be cold, calculating. When she finally came out after nearly 2 hours, I followed her back home. I needed to keep my cool. I couldn't blow this now. That night I sat alone in the dark, the evidence stacking up in my head. I knew I couldn't just confront her without any backup. I had to be smarter. I had to make her believe I was still clueless, that I was just waiting for the right moment. Meanwhile, I was planning how to lay everything out in a way that would crush her, leave her powerless. In the quiet, I thought about how things had changed. I'd gone from loving her to feeling like a stranger. All those years I'd trusted her, built my world around her. Now I wondered if I'd ever look at her the same way again. The betrayal cut so deep I could almost taste it. But I wasn't done. Not yet. There was still one final move I had to make, one that would force her to face her lies head-on. I wanted her to see everything I knew, everything I'd uncovered. I was ready to break her, to shatter her carefully constructed illusion. The plan was simple, effective, and inevitable. I'd wait until the right moment, then reveal all the evidence at once. Let her see herself exposed, vulnerable, caught red-handed. I wanted her to feel just a fraction of what I'd been feeling, drowning in betrayal, suffocating in lies. And when that moment came, I'd be there, watching her crumble. Because no matter how much she thought she could lie her way out of it, she'd never escape the truth. Not anymore. Not from me. The anticipation was worse than the waiting. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, innocent and betrayed, the way I would make her feel. That was my revenge, more than just exposure. It was about making her understand the damage she'd done. And I was going to do it, just as sure as I was breathing. The day finally arrived when I knew I'd get my chance. I'd been building my plan for days, watching her every move, collecting more evidence, screenshots, recordings, everything I needed to make her face her lies. The anticipation was a heavy weight pressing down on my chest. I felt like I was walking a tightrope, every nerve on edge. I knew I couldn't slip up now. This had to be perfect. That evening, she came home later than usual, looking over her shoulder like she was afraid of being caught. Her eyes darted around the room, hands nervously fidgeting with her purse. I sat on the couch, pretending to be relaxed, but inside I was preparing myself for the moment I'd finally confront her. I already had everything queued up, messages, location data, photos. It was all ready to go. She finally sat beside me, trying to act casual. "Long day," she muttered, avoiding eye contact. I looked at her, feeling the cold detachment I'd cultivated over the last few days. "Really? Because I've been busy too," I said, voice steady. "I've been looking at your phone, Lisa. I've seen enough to know what's been going on." Her face turned pale. She froze for a second, then tried to laugh it off. "What are you talking about?" she asked, but her hands trembled. I pulled out my phone, clicking through the evidence I'd assembled. "I know about the messages, the meetups," I said quietly, but there was steel behind my words. "The hotel photo, the note with that address. Tell me, Lisa, how long has this been going on?" My voice cracked slightly, but I kept my composure. Her eyes welled up with tears. "It's not what it looks like," she whispered, voice trembling. "It's just a mistake." I shook my head. "No, Lisa, it's betrayal, months of lies. I trusted you. I trusted my brother. How could you do this?" She looked away, silent. I could see the guilt pooling in her eyes, her face crumbling. I reached for my phone again, scrolling to the last piece of evidence I'd saved, an audio clip of her admitting to the affair and a voice memo I'd secretly recorded. I pressed play. I don't know how it happened," her voice said, shaky. "It was a mistake, I swear. I didn't mean for it to go this far." Her words hit like a punch. I saw her break down, saw her try to justify herself. That moment right there, that she'd lied for so long, that she'd betrayed me with my own brother, everything shattered inside me. I looked her dead in the eyes. "It's over, Lisa, you're done." I was calm, but my mind was racing. I had to make her understand she wasn't getting away with this. "I want you to leave," I said, voice cold. "Get your things and don't come back. I'm done with your lies. I'm done with you." I paused, watching her stare at the floor, defeated. She finally looked up, tears streaming down her face. "Please don't do this. I was stupid. I didn't mean for it to ruin everything," she whispered. I shook my head. "You played me for a fool. I trusted you and you threw it all away for a few moments of pleasure. That's your mistake. I'm not forgiving this, not now, not ever." I handed her a bag and told her to pack her things. She hesitated for a second, then silently began gathering clothes, tears still flowing. I said nothing, just watched her, feeling a strange mixture of anger and emptiness. She was finally exposed, and I knew she'd regret everything just as I wanted. As she left the house, I stood in the doorway watching her walk out, the keys already in my hand. I closed the door behind her, feeling a weight lift and a new emptiness settle in. The revenge was done. I'd made her see that her lies had consequences. The house felt cold now. I sat on the couch, staring at the empty space where she'd been. My chest was tight, and I could feel the shock and relief battling inside me. I felt a strange clarity, knowing this was the start of healing, even if it was going to be a long road. All my life, I'd believed in loyalty, honesty, trust. Now, I saw that those things could be shattered in an instant. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that betrayal cuts deep, but the real strength comes in knowing when to cut the cord and walk away. That's what I did, finally, decisively, and without looking back. The days following her departure were a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I'd finally done what I set out to do, exposed her, confronted her, and cut her loose. Yet the ache of betrayal lingered deep in my chest. Every time I thought about how everything had fallen apart, my stomach clenched, and a mix of anger and sadness washed over me. I'd been drowning in this storm of feelings, but I knew I had to keep moving forward. I stayed alone in the house for a few days, just to get my head straight. I packed her belongings myself, placing her things in boxes and leaving them outside the door. I didn't want her lingering around, trying to manipulate or come back. When I finally handed her the keys, I made sure to do it with a sense of finality, watching her eyes fill with regret. She looked at me like she wanted to say something, but she just turned and walked away, her tears catching the light as she disappeared down the street. That night, I finally took a deep breath and allowed myself to feel everything I'd been holding back. The betrayal, the anger, the sense of loss. I poured a drink, sat on the porch and looked up at the darkening sky. The air smelled of rain, fresh and clean, almost like a reset. My mind kept circling back to her, to everything that had happened. I couldn't help but wonder how I'd let myself get so blind to the signs, how I'd trusted her for so long. But I also knew I had to focus on moving on. I couldn't let her hold me hostage in this pain. I had to rebuild piece by piece. I started with small things, cleaning out the house, deleting her number, blocking her on social media. I didn't want to see her, didn't want to hear her excuses. She made her choice. Now I was reclaiming my life. As I did, I realized I'd been living in denial for too long. The red flags were there all along. The late nights, the secretive texts, the nervous glances. I'd ignored them because I loved her, because I wanted to believe she was perfect. That's the trap we fall into, isn't it? Ignoring the signs because we're scared to face the truth. But now, I was starting to see everything clearly. I remembered the small things she'd said or done that seemed off in hindsight. The way she'd flinch when I asked about her phone. The quick change of subject when I got too close to her secret. I let myself feel that pain, that sting of betrayal, because I knew it was necessary. Only through pain could I really start healing. I also reached out to my brother. I needed to hear his side, to understand what had driven him to cross that line. Our relationship was complicated now. We talked painfully about what had happened, about the lies, about the damage. I told him, "You're supposed to be my family. How could you do this to me?" His voice was thick with regret. "I messed up. I never wanted to hurt you. It was a mistake I regret more than anything." That conversation did fix everything, but it helped me see that forgiveness, at least in some form, was possible, though not now. Not yet. I needed time to process. I needed to rebuild myself piece by piece. The most important lesson I learned from all this: that trust is fragile. You think you have it, and then one day it's gone. Betrayal changes everything. But it also forces you to look at yourself honestly, to face your vulnerabilities and decide what kind of person you want to be after the storm. I knew I had to become stronger, more cautious, but not bitter. I also realized that revenge, while tempting, wasn't going to fix what was broken. I had already taken everything from her that I needed to. My final act was letting go, cutting the cord, moving forward. I told myself I'd never let someone's lies make me that vulnerable again. So now, I'm slowly rebuilding my life. I've started to focus on myself again, on my work, my friends, my future. The house feels emptier but also lighter. I don't know what's next, and maybe I don't need to know. What matters is that I'm finally free from her shadow. Looking back, I see how blind I'd been, how much I'd sacrificed for that illusion of perfection. But I also see the strength I found in walking away, in choosing myself over the betrayal. That's what I want to tell anyone reading this: trust your instincts. When the red flags start waving, don't ignore them. And if someone betrays you, don't be afraid to take control, even if it means breaking away completely. You might feel broken now, but there's always a way to pick up the pieces and build something better. The days turned into weeks, and slowly the ache inside me began to dull. I stayed busy, focusing on my work and the small routines that kept my mind from spiraling back into that dark place. The house was quieter without her, and honestly, that silence felt like a relief. I'd spent so long pretending everything was fine, pretending I didn't see the signs, pretending I was happy. Now I was finally free from all that noise. One afternoon, I sat on the porch, drinking my coffee, feeling the sun warm my face. It hit differently now, less heavy, more like a dawn after a long storm. I looked around. At the quiet street, the familiar trees swaying gently in the breeze, I realized I'd never felt this kind of clarity before. I'd been so lost in betrayal and anger I'd forgotten what peace felt like. I thought about her, about how she'd lied, how she'd broken my trust. I remembered the moment I found the photos, the messages, the note, how that chaos had taken over my life. But I also remembered something else: the strength it took to finally walk away, to take control. That's what saved me. That's what made me feel alive again. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the small keyring I'd kept. It had belonged to her, a symbol of everything I thought we shared. I took the keys off and looked at them in my hand. They felt heavy, but also like a weight I was finally shedding. I dropped them into the nearby trash can, watching as they disappeared beneath the garbage. That was the moment I let go of what I couldn't control anymore. The truth was, I didn't need her to define me. I'd spent so long giving her the power to ruin me, and now I was reclaiming that power, not through revenge but through acceptance. I accepted that she was gone, that what we had was just a hollow shell of what it used to be, and in that acceptance I found a kind of peace I'd thought I'd never get back. Later that evening, I sat in my favorite chair, staring out at the sunset. The sky was a riot of oranges and pinks, a reminder that even after the darkest storms, there's always beauty waiting. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs. It was strange. After everything, I felt lighter, free to start over again, to rebuild my life on my own terms. Looking back, I know I'll carry the scars of this betrayal forever. It's part of me now, a reminder of what I survived. But I also know I'm stronger for it. I learned how to trust myself again, how to listen to those red flags before they consume me. I learned that even in the deepest betrayal, there's a way out, a way to find yourself again, no matter how broken you feel. The most important thing I want everyone reading this to take away is this: betrayal, no matter how painful, doesn't have to define you. It can be a catalyst for growth, for reclaiming your strength. Trust your instincts and don't be afraid to walk away from what no longer serves you, because true freedom lies in choosing yourself, even when it's the hardest thing to do. So I stand here now, not as a victim of betrayal, but as someone who's learned to rise above it. My life isn't perfect, and I don't expect it to be, but it's mine, and that's enough. I've learned that sometimes the greatest act of courage is simply walking away, closing the door on the pain, and stepping into the future with hope. And I know, without doubt, that I will be okay.